And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jersey Joe. How are you?
Good, thank you. You know what today is?
Tuesday. Oh, it's tax day. Did you
Tax
do
day.
your
Did you get your
taxes, Jersey Joe?
taxes filed?
I did mine back in February. Did you do yours?
I had to file for an extension because I have to wait for something called a K-1 from one of the companies I'm involved in. So I haven't been able to file on the 15th for 10 years. So
Well,
uh,
and we just had a wicked storm blow through town that knocked out power to half the town, so it's probably coming your way.
all right, well, we'll try to get this done while I still have power. By the way, I got so much tonight. I normally start with 14 or 15 and try to whittle it down to seven or eight things. I couldn't get it down to less than 10. So we're going to let you pick which ones we skip and which ones we save for next week. Anyway, so today is April 15th, tax day. And you either have to file your taxes or file for an extension postmarked by midnight tonight. So hopefully you've done that. Anyway, for the third week in a row, our quote of the week is going to be once again from economist Thomas Sowell on why studying and understand history is so important. In our stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll tell you about a new law in California that bases the price of a speeding ticket you get based on your income. How do you like that?
Yeah, I don't think I'd like that.
The more you make, the more your ticket is. Anyway, we'll tell you how they do that. Our runner-up in the stupidest thing I've heard all week is actually a sad one. It's a story about an 18-year-old man who was just arrested for the fourth or fifth time in Colorado for his fourth gun-related crime in 3 years. And we ask, why wasn't this guy still in jail for his three prior crimes? Um, and this one I got from you will tell you where some foreign college students just had their student visas revoked and why. Um, Remember last week we did a bunch of Wayback. By the way, for those not familiar with Wayback, when I was young, there was a show called Rocky and Bullwinkle, and they had a
Yeah.
segment called the Wayback Machine, where it was like going back in history.
Yeah.
You saw that? You were old enough to
Yeah,
see
I
that?
remember that.
All right. Well, in one of our Wayback segments, we'll play a clip of Senator Bernie Sanders arguing in favor of having strong closed borders and limiting illegal immigration. And in yet another Wayback segment, we'll play a clip of New York Senator Chuck Schumer making a case for harsher tariffs on Chinese goods. This is the same guy who last week was lambasting Trump for the tariffs he put on Chinese goods. And yet here he was about 10 years ago ranting and raving why we need to put more tariffs on Chinese goods. And while we're on the topic of Chuck Schumer, did you know that Chuck Schumer was a helicopter expert and knows all about aviation safety?
I did not know that.
Well, yeah, because apparently he is, because he got in front of a TV camera on Saturday and he was telling everybody how we can make helicopter flights in the New York City area a lot safer. So I didn't realize that was one of his many talents, that he's an expert on helicopters and aviation safety. So we'll play that clip. We've talked before about the Democrat argument, the liberal argument, if we need to pass this legislation if it would only save one life. Well, we'll play a clip of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt describing how a young mother in Georgia was recently brutally murdered by an illegal alien who had been previously arrested and should have been deported, but wasn't. So again, had this person been deported, it would have saved yet another life. We'll tell you about, have you heard about the SAVE Act? That's a big controversy in Congress.
I have heard of it, but I can't remember what it's about.
It's the Safe Voting Act that basically
Oh
says,
yeah, yeah, about the IDs and all that. Yeah.
yeah, that we want to ensure that only citizens vote in our elections. Well, there's a lot of false claims circulating by Democrats. Well, this will mean that women who have recently gotten married and changed their last names won't be able to vote
Yep.
because their last names won't match their birth certificate. Well, um, I've got some information why that's just a whopper of a lie. Um, we all know who Bill Maher is, right?
Yeah,
Bill Maher,
the talk show host.
right? A liberal talk. Well, he had dinner with Donald Trump last week, and he actually came away impressed. And here's Bill Maher saying very nice things about Donald Trump. It'll only be a matter of time before the liberals, tar and feather him. But Bill Maher is saying nice things about Donald Trump. And our taxpayer lead shot comes to us from Covington, Kentucky, where the son of a homeowner shoots and kills one of three armed home invaders. Now, I'm not going to get all that in, I don't think, so keep running the clock. I might have to ask you which ones we skip.
Yeah.
All right. So Thomas Sowell, our economist friend, and he says, here's why you need to study history. And we may have done this one a year ago, but I like it a lot. He said, one of the most important reasons for studying history is that virtually every stupid idea that is in vogue today has been tried before and proved disastrous time and time again. You know,
Yep, very true.
you know, but it's like, come on, folks, history. It's been tried and failed. It's been tried with disaster. Like, why do we want to try this again? All right.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about California. So in California just passed a law that is going to base the size of your ticket on your income. Now, it would have been illegal, they say, if you make above this, your ticket's going to be, X or 2X. So to get around that, what they did is they established these ridiculously high fines, like $500 for a speeding ticket. But then they passed something to offer a discount to if you're poor, like if you're on Medicaid or food stamps or you're less than two times the poverty level. So instead of passing a law that would have been challenged and overturned, like if you make more than $100,000, we're going to double your fine. They did it the other way around. They said we're going to offer a discount if you're in any sort of uh, public assistance program. Now, by the way, if you're a couple and you have a household income of $70,000 a year or 69,600, you can actually qualify for Medicaid in California. So that's how they've done it. They've set these ridiculously high fines, like $500 for a simple speeding ticket. But if your income is below a certain level, you'll be eligible for a discount. So and by the way, if this stands up in California, I guarantee you're going to see other blue states adopt the exact same thing. It's basically let's let the rich people pay for it. All right,
Yeah.
because they got the money. So, right. Any comment on rich people paying more?
I disagree. It should just be flat across the board.
Right across the board, right.
And I
Um,
did experience something similar it was actually in New York State, in upstate New York. I was driving through a podunk little town somewhere between Pennsylvania and Buffalo, and I saw the cop. I got stopped, and he gave me a speeding ticket. I was probably speeding, and after he handed me the ticket, I was reading the ticket and he had already walked away and he comes back. He goes, "Is there a problem?" I said, "Yeah, there is a problem." I said, "Nowhere on here does it say how much my fine is." He goes, "Well, you have to plead guilty and then the judge will decide what your fine is." I was like, what kind of racket is this?
oh my
That
goodness.
like this should be listed. It should be if
Yeah,
you're speeding 10 miles and over, this is your fine. If
it's
it's 20
actually
miles
if it's
and
20
over,
right,
this
if
is
it's,
your
it's 20
fine.
miles over, it's Y. Yeah, and I've seen that
Yeah.
before. Yeah, where your fine is proportional to the size of your offense.
Yeah, yeah, the judge would then later, what if the judge was having a bad day? Then my fine would be more than if he was having a good day
Do you
then?
remember how much the fine wound up being?
I think it ended up with like $250.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All right.
But yeah, there was no posted, this is your fine for how
Yeah,
much
yeah,
you
that
went
does
over.
that does sound like a
And
racket.
that was in upstate New York, and it was probably maybe 5 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Well, now you know don't speed through that little town in upstate New York. By the way,
Yeah, it was just past
yeah.
Ellicottville. If there's any
Okay.
skiers listening, Ellicottville is a big ski town on the way to
Okay.
Buffalo.
By the way, there's a town in Colorado where the town gets more than half its revenue from speeding tickets. You're coming up the interstate and they have this like 25-mile-an-hour speed limit through the middle of town, and it's just one giant. The entire town is a speed trap. So anyway, all right. Here's my stupidest thing of the week, runner up, and this is actually sad. It's why it's stupid is that this guy, I'm going to tell you what he's been arrested and convicted for. And my question is, why was this guy with this arrest record still not in jail? And here's what he was arrested for last week. The Aurora, Colorado Police Department has arrested a criminal menace who has racked up a bunch of gun crime arrests at the ripe old age of 18. His latest arrest came after he opened fire on a group of guys filming a music video. These guys were out with cameras. They were on the street filming. There was a film crew, whatnot. He didn't know these people. They were minding their own business, filming, and he just walked up and started shooting. Now, here's his criminal history. He was convicted of possession of a weapon by a previous in 2023, for which he served a 2-year parole sentence. Wasn't even incarcerated, 2 years worth of parole. In the last 6 months, he had been arrested twice for possession of a converted fully automatic handgun. And he was on parole during both of those arrests. So those were arrest numbers 2 and 3. In October of 2024, they arrested him in connection to a carjacking that happened just hours before his 18th birthday. He is the active defendant charged with the attempted first-degree murder and attempted second-degree murder, among other charges, in a different county. Police said he posted an $80,000 bond in that case and was free on bond at the time of the drive-by shooting when he shot at the music crew. How stupid is it that this guy was not still in jail?
Yeah, who's the district attorney who prosecuted this person?
Well, it's the judge. It was the judges, actually. It was the judges.
Judge, attorneys, they're all at fault.
They're all at fault. Uh, I mean, talk about carjacking. By the way, fully automatic, but that's a federal offense. They should have brought the
Yeah.
feds in, the ATF. We've talked about, how people convert semi-automatic handguns to fully automatic handguns. And he was on parole during both of those prior arrests. So I don't know if it's stupid or sad, but this is, you know, I mean, it's mind-blowing that this guy was still not in jail and was driving around and said, "Oh, there's a film crew shooting him. I'm just going to open fire on him."
For no
Um,
reason.
yeah, just shaking my head. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you about this one in the preview, or maybe, yeah, I know it wasn't in my preview. Who's my favorite senator?
Oh, John Kennedy down in Louisiana.
John Kennedy from Louisiana. Well, there's a congressional hearing, and the woman he's talking to, she's a PhD professor of law at George Washington University in um, Washington, D.C. And I think she's been nominated, or I don't, maybe she's there testifying on something. And he starts to ask her questions about some things she's written. And he just shreds her. If you can see the video near the end of this video, she's literally squirming in her seat. So here we go. Senator John Kennedy. By the way, he sounds like a country bumpkin. This guy's a Harvard Law graduate. Here we go. And this is going to be long. That's why we may run out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having to miss the testimony of some of you, and I appreciate you coming today. Professor Franks, let me ask you, I listened to your and Ms. Hemingway's testimony and Professor Turley, so I got part of it. As I understand it, your position, Professor Franks, is that I think you used the word myth. It is a myth that the Biden administration used government to compel speech, private speech, but that the Trump administration is doing that. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you're allowing your personal political beliefs to affect your objectivity here?
No, I do not. What is guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship
Okay.
industrial complex.
I got that part.
No, I
got
just
that
want to
part.
clarify.
No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said,
By the way, the Bruin was a Second Amendment case that said states can't refuse to issue concealed carry permits, and the Dobbs case was the one where the Supreme Court overturned the Roe v. Wade. So one is about the Second Amendment, the other is about abortion. So here we go.
I'm going to quote your words. Taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy, end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, when the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for.
Can you believe she said that? This, the Second Amendment gives white men the privilege to terrorize black men by walking down the street armed.
I feel like anybody who's a senator, congressman, whatever, they all need to have like a basic history lesson on like how this country was founded and how our Constitution was written.
Well, but this woman is not a member of Congress. She's there just testifying as a professor. So,
But as a professor, she should have a basic understanding of how our Constitution was written.
right. I'm gonna back that segment up at one more time. Here we go.
Promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, by simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court, referring to the current.
But by the way, I must have missed the Supreme Court ruling where they said it's okay for white men to kill people. Do you remember that ruling?
I don't remember that ruling.
We'll have to look it up because that's what she's claiming, that Supreme Court made it legal for white men to kill other people. All right.
United States Supreme Court has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well, close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You try to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance.
Well, let me show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m. Quote, the majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this.
Did you say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but what is the relevance
here
of that?
Here it is, big as Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me like you have your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, there's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question that is relevant to this here?
He asked her a question and she said, is there a question? He just asked her the question.
Did I read that correctly? Do you really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president and other state officials for punishing people for.
Did you honestly say that, Professor? And you expect us,
that the First
Amendment, as a Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
Anyway, she's literally squirming in her seat. So I don't know how many men do you know, but how many of them hate women, to your knowledge, of the male human?
Not many.
Not many.
I mean, yes, there's definitely like a group of men out there who hate women, but like generally speaking, no.
No, so, okay. Anyway, this is great, and I know I ran the whole 5 minutes, so I know we're going to not get to anything, but I think anybody who's listening to this, go to the Jerzee Joe website in a couple of days, jerseyjoe.com, and watch this, because you've got to look at Dr. Mary Ann Franks as she's literally squirming in her seat and trying to not answer the simple questions he's asking her. So it's just incredible. I mean, what was your reaction to her in her characterization of the Second Amendment and men in the Supreme Court?
Yeah, I think she needs a history lesson on how the Constitution was written.
Okay. All right, real quick, you told me about this. So what happened at Penn State last week regarding some foreign students?
Some of our international students, their visas were revoked.
It was just arbitrary. They just picked their names out of a hat.
No, I believe that the students had committed some infractions from specifically like retail theft. I don't know all of the students and all of their
But
crimes,
well, I
but
think I read the thing. I think it was shoplifting for some of them, and like things like DUI for the rest. Now,
yeah,
I can't believe they just picked Penn State. I have to believe that what happened last week at Penn State is probably going to happen at a lot of other colleges.
yeah.
They're probably comparing arrest records, and there is a national criminal database. Like when you go to buy a gun, if you get arrested, it shows up and on the national FBI background check. So I think what they're probably doing is matching up the national criminal. It's called the NCIS, NICS, the NICS criminal background database with the student visa database. So
Mhm.
it wouldn't surprise me to see that happen at more and more colleges. That if you're here on a visa, which is a privilege, not a right, and you're arrested for a crime and that you've violated the condition of your visa, and you
Mhm.
could stand a good chance of getting deported. And well, having your visa, you can always self-deport. Once they revoke your visa, you've got like 30 days to get out. And if you
Mhm.
don't, then you would get deported. So
And I think, what happens is when these students were arrested or charged or for their DUIs or shoplifting or retail theft, whatever the case may have been, whether it was a misdemeanor or not, you're fingerprinted through that process, and
yeah,
they're going through the paperwork process.
yeah, yeah. Hey, how much time we got?
You have about 10, 12 minutes.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to get through as much as we can. So let's start the Wayback Machine. All right. So here's Bernie Sanders arguing that we need stronger borders.
That's a Koch brothers proposal. The idea, of course, I mean, that's a right-wing proposal which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with the concept of a nation state. And I don't think there's any country in the world which believes in that. If you believe in a nation state or in a country called the United States or UK or Denmark or any other country, you have an obligation, in my view, to do everything we can to help poor people. What right-wing people in this country would love is an open border policy. Bring in all kinds of people who work for $2 or $3 an hour. That would be.
By the way, I don't know what he's been smoking, but I've never in my life known any quote right-wing conservative Republicans to be in favor of open borders, but that's what Bernie's claiming. But let's go on.
Great for them. I don't believe in that. I think we have to raise wages in this country. I think we have to do everything that we can to create the millions of jobs. You know what youth unemployment in the United States of America today? If you're a white kid, high school graduate, 33%, a Hispanic, 36%, African-American, 51%. You think we should open the borders and bring in a lot of low-wage workers? What do you think? Maybe we should try to get jobs for those kids. So I think from a moral responsibility, we've got to work with the rest of the industrialized world to address the problems of international poverty. But you don't do that by making people in this country even poor. Open.
So there he is. He's arguing for closed borders. By the way, everything he says, when you admit, 11, 12, 13 million people from, other countries and, they're willing to work for very low wages and it does depress wages. So he's absolutely right on that economic point.
Yeah.
When
But
you
students he was talking about they don't want to work.
well, some do, some don't. Some do.
I
Some
think those who want to work, there are jobs available for them.
Right, right. But it's just ironic, that 15 years ago, Bernie was arguing for stronger border controls and not letting so many illegal aliens in. So just ironic things how change. Now let's go to back in our Wayback Machine. Let's go to Chuck Schumer arguing for heavy, stiff tariffs on Chinese goods. Here we go.
Says to the Chinese, enough already. It says to the Chinese that Their unfair trade policies have got to end. It says to the Chinese, this is a shot across your bow. Reform, because if you don't, there are going to be dramatic consequences throughout the world, in our country, and in your country as well.
All right, so that was Chuck Schumer arguing for very stiff, very stiff tariffs on Chinese goods. Now, most people have heard about the helicopter that came apart in the sky and
Yes,
plunged into
very
the
sad.
Hudson. Very sad. Now, by the way, Chuck Schumer, by the way, most people don't know this. He actually wasn't planning on giving a press conference. But he was at the sign where the NTSB where they were fishing, and he wasn't originally planning on speaking on this topic, but when he saw the TV camera with the red record light on, he just couldn't help himself because they're saying don't ever get between Chuck Schumer and a TV camera, and unfortunately there was also an 82-year-old woman walking with a cane between Schumer and the camera when he spotted it. But the good news is that her injuries were not life-threatening. But here's Chuck Schumer when he jumped up in front of this camera that was there filming the salvage operation.
It does not require the entire team of people who oversee or fly the helicopter to have the level of training and experience that commercial and passenger helicopter companies have to have.
The Bell 206 that seemed to break
Oh,
apart in the air, its pieces splashing down near Jersey City Thursday afternoon, has been mostly recovered from the river. Examining, and so is its gearbox. Critical pieces needed to solve the statement tonight.
Go up on it.
The FAA to ramp inspect for helicopters more frequently.
A ramp inspection is a surprise inspection. They show up unannounced and check if things are on the level.
So anyway, so there's Chuck Schumer, giving his 2 cents. Obviously, he studied this. He's been a pilot. I'm sure he's been a pilot for many years. I'm sure he's studied aviation safety, but Chuck Schumer knows how to prevent helicopter crashes in the Hudson River. Anyway, I got so many more things I want to play. I clearly can't get to the Bill Maher quote. But here's this. If it would only see, here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt talking about another life that was lost.
Who was released by the Biden administration into our country, was just arrested in Georgia and charged with the horrific killing of Camelia Williams, a mother of 5 and grandmother. The suspect has now been indicted on charges of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, rape, aggravated sexual battery, and necrophilia, which for those who don't know, necrophilia is a sexual obsession with a corpse. This suspect was ordered to be removed in July 2023, but the Biden administration allowed him to stay. This case represents the
Now remember, he had a deportation order in July of 2023, and here it is 2025, and this is what he did last week, a year and a half after that deportation order was issued.
Murderers, rapists, and pedophiles who Joe Biden and Democrats let into our country over the past 4 years through our southern border. They should have never been here in the first place.
All right. So what do you think? Another life lost. I'm just shaking my head. We've done these almost every week where an illegal alien has either murdered a small child, a woman, a nursing student. It just goes on and on and on. So are we down to 5 minutes or less here?
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes.
All right. Well, I'm going to skip Bill Maher and I'm going to skip the SAVE Act. We'll save that for next week. This is about the Voting Act. And I'm just going to go right to our taxpayer leave shot. And again, we call them taxpayer leave shots because when a citizen legitimately kills a violent thug, you save the taxpayers the cost of a jury trial and 10 years in prison or more at $80,000 a year. So you save the taxpayers $1 million. Well, here's one from Kentucky where not one, not two, but 3 armed thugs break into a home. And fortunately, the homeowner's son was in a different room when he heard this, and the homeowner's son was able to grab a gun and come out. And here's what happened.
Developing now, police released the name of the suspect killed after they say he tried robbing people in a Covington home. 43-year-old Joshua Kersey died after the homeowner's son shot him, according to officers. 9 on your sides. Jake Ryle is live at the Covington Police Department. Jake, what can you tell us?
Well, we know the Kenton County prosecutor is not going to be filing charges in relation to this shooting investigation. Police and the prosecutor's office believe this was a case of self-defense for the homeowner after several suspects ended up breaking into the home. Now, this is a prior mugshot of the suspect killed, 43-year-old Joshua Kersey. According to that release, 3 masked men broke into a home in the 300 block of West 7th Street just after 1:30 Tuesday morning. Now, the suspect
1:30 in the morning.
Showed guns to threaten the homeowners, Floyd and Darlene Gilley. Those suspects demanded to know a person's whereabouts who hadn't lived in the home in a long time, according to police. A 24-year-old son ended up grabbing a handgun when he heard Kersey heading his way and shot him at least one time, hitting him in the chest. The other 2 suspects then ran off. Now, Covington police.
I can't believe his buddies ran off and left him there. Oh, my goodness. That's never happened before, has it?
Never.
Still searching for those 2 suspects. They're asking if you have any information at this point to go ahead and give them a call. For now, reporting live in Covington, Jake Ryle, 9 on your side.
By the way, Kentucky, I put Kentucky right up there with Texas and Idaho.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If you don't think somebody in the house has got a gun, you're not going to have a very long career as a criminal breaking into people's houses at 1:30 in the morning and expect to be doing that and make a career out of doing that. All right. I got so much I'm going to save for next week. So we're not going to, we'll just have to carry more. We clearly don't have enough time. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, we've had a lot of discussions today about like illegal immigration. There's nothing wrong with people wanting to come to this country to make a better life, but there's the proper way to do it. There's the legal way and there's the illegal way. And when you do come to this country, you need to be respectful of our country.
Right. And by the way, I think that Congress now allows about 500,000 people a year to legally immigrate to this country. But
when you look at the way when roles are reversed, I mean, we hear horror stories on the news regularly about us, American citizens, going to other countries and being locked up for what we as Americans find to be ridiculous crimes. Like, look at what they do to us when Americans make what we would consider a silly or stupid mistake in Russia or China.
Yeah, right.
And how they treat us there. But yet even though we find it ridiculous, we officially broke their rules.
Well, right. You break one of their tiny little rules and you wind up in prison, for that basketball player. What was her name?
Oh, I can't remember her name, but yeah, I mean, and she admitted she broke the law, but they treated her very unfairly.
Yeah,
what we consider to be unfair.
Right. In this country, by the way, it would be you'd get a ticket for
it would have been a misdemeanor. Yeah.
And a misdemeanor tickets. Anyway.
She was facing how many years in prison?
10 years in a Russian jail.
And the prisons over there are, I mean, honestly, here in America, our prisons are
gulags. Yeah, gulags. So
3 squares a day.
3 squares a day. All right. Hey, if you got nothing else, I want to sign off. We're running out of time. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, we'll have to get to our dinner, Bill Maher's dinner with President Trump next week, and the Safe Voting Act next week.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I want to thank all of you who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to things I find interesting and important. And I hope you if you want to see the video of Senator Kennedy questioning that law professor, I urge you to do that. It's just really fantastic. I urge you to look at it and watch her squirm. Anyway, if you enjoy what you heard today, I hope you continue to listen in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see the materials and story links, including those videos you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a couple of days, and you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerziejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey, J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, jerziejoe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or suggested show topic like some of you have done, you can do that by sending me an email to just joe@jerziejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and 2 E's. And with that, producer Susan, I'm going to sign off and talk to you next week, all right?
Great.
All right, you take care. All right, bye-bye.